Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please
Look,
hit that
the Bo
subscribe
Bichette
button
situation just
right
got a whole lot more interesting. And if you're following the offseason closely, you need to pay attention to what's happening here, because this could reshape multiple infield configurations across baseball. So Jon Heyman drops this report that the Phillies are now in the mix for Bichette, and immediately you have to start connecting the dots. Philadelphia already has one of the most dangerous lineups in baseball, right? But here's the thing that makes this really intriguing. They've got Trea Turner locked in at shortstop. They've got Bryson Stott at second base, and now they're sniffing around Bichette. What does that tell you? It tells you they're not satisfied with just being good. They want to be elite at every position. Now, Stott has been solid, especially with the glove. Nobody's arguing that. But when you look at what Bichette brings to the table offensively, even with his down year, we're talking about a significant upgrade at the plate. And here's something that changes everything about this market. Bichette played second base for the first time in his career during the World Series. He actually looked comfortable there despite coming off a knee injury. And that opens up so many more doors for teams that already have their shortstop situation figured out. The market for Bichette isn't just widening, it's exploding. Heyman's reporting that we've got at least 5 serious suitors here. The Yankees are involved. The Cubs are circling. The Dodgers, because of course the Dodgers are always in the mix for premium talent. And now the Phillies jumping in. This is turning into exactly the kind of bidding situation that drives up value and creates some really fascinating scenarios. Let's talk about the Yankees angle for a second, because this one's particularly spicy. They're apparently fielding trade inquiries for Jazz Chisholm Jr. Think about that. Chisholm had a solid season for them, brought energy, brought versatility, but if they can move him and bring in Bichette, you're potentially getting a more consistent bat with upside that hasn't been fully realized yet. Bichette's 26 years old. His best baseball should still be ahead of him if he can stay healthy and get back to the form we saw when he was putting up all-star numbers. The Cubs situation is equally interesting. They're taking calls on Nico Hoerner, who's been a steady presence for them but doesn't have the same offensive ceiling as Bichette. Chicago needs to add impact bats if they're serious about competing in what's becoming an increasingly tough National League Central. Moving Hoerner to bring in Bichette would be a clear signal that they're done being a middle-of-the-pack team and ready to make some noise. But here's where it gets really complicated. The Blue Jays still want him back. Toronto wants to keep Bichette. And that makes sense, right? This is a franchise icon we're talking about. A guy who's been the face of the team alongside Vlad Guerrero Jr. You don't just let that walk away without putting up a fight, especially when you're trying to convince your fan base that you're committed to winning. The Blue Jays have had a rough couple of years. Attendance is down, morale is down, and letting Bichette go to a division rival or even just a contender sends a terrible message. The Red Sox can't be ruled out either, but their pursuit is conditional. It depends on what happens with Alex Bregman. Boston's trying to figure out their infield situation, and if they miss out on Bregman, Bichette becomes a really attractive fallback option, maybe even a better option depending on how you value age and cost. The Red Sox need to add impact players, they need to show their fans they're serious about contending again, and Bichette fits that profile perfectly. What we're seeing here is the reality of modern baseball free agency and trade markets converging. You've got teams that are win-now mode evaluating whether their current players are good enough or whether they need to upgrade. You've got teams trying to balance payroll flexibility with competitive urgency. And you've got a player like Bichette who's willing to make the position change that dramatically expands his market. The willingness to move to second base is huge. It cannot be overstated how much that changes his value. Suddenly, teams like the Phillies and Yankees, who were maybe on the periphery, are now serious players because they don't have to solve the shortstop puzzle. They can keep their current setup and just upgrade another position. That flexibility makes Bichette one of the most interesting players available this offseason. Now let's talk about what kind of contract we're looking at here. Bichette's coming off a down year where he hit just .235 with 20 home runs. Not bad, but not the impact numbers he put up in his All-Star seasons. However, teams aren't going to forget that he hit .304 and .298 in consecutive years with power and speed. They're going to bet on the talent, bet on the age, bet on the fact that he was dealing with injuries last year and could bounce back. you're probably looking at something in the range of 4 to 6 years, depending on how aggressive teams get. The annual value could be anywhere from 18 to 25 million depending on length and structure. Some team is going to believe they can unlock the version of Bichette we saw a few years ago, and they're going to pay for that upside. The Dodgers being involved adds another layer of intrigue because they just seem to collect premium talent like it's a hobby. They've already got the best roster in baseball on paper, and somehow they're still looking for upgrades. If they land Bichette, you're talking about a lineup that's going to be borderline unfair. But that's also the Dodgers brand at this point, overwhelming you with talent at every position. What makes this entire situation so compelling is that it's not just about where Bichette lands. It's about the domino effect. If the Yankees trade Chisholm, where does he go and what do they get back? If the Cubs move Hoerner, does that signal a bigger offensive overhaul? If the Blue Jays lose Bichette, do they pivot to another big name or do they signal a rebuild? These decisions don't happen in isolation. One thing's for certain, Bo Bichette's next contract is going to be fascinating to watch unfold. You've got big market teams with money to spend. You've got competitive teams looking for that final piece. And you've got a player talented enough to change the trajectory of a franchise. The market is heating up, the interested teams are multiplying, and we're probably just getting started with this saga. Keep your eyes on this one because wherever Bichette ends up, it's going to have major implications for the entire league.